In Parsha Chukat, we're told of the death of Miriam. Now, right after the death of Miriam, it says Ve. This is a Vav. This is a connecting letter that we're told, and the congregation had nothing to drink. So the Torah is connecting the episodes of Miriam's death and them having nothing to drink at that point. And we're told that it was because of Miriam that they had this, the Be'er Shel Miriam, they had this well that lasted with them all throughout the desert from the first episode when they didn't have water and Moshe was told to hit the rock, and then the rock brought forth water, and it lasted the bulk of the 40 years in the desert until Miriam's death, because it was in her credit that the nation had this well of Miriam to drink. But when she died, it ceased to exist. They didn't have water anymore, and so they complained. They gathered on to Moshe and Aharon, and they said, we should have died with our brothers. Why did you take us out of Mitzrayim? Nothing to drink, and they just were going to all perish. And Moshe and Aharon were devastated, but God came to them, and God said to Moshe and Aharon, "Take the staff in your hands, go and speak to the rock in the eyes of the nation, and bring forth water for them." But Moshe and Aharon did not actualize the commandment the way God had given it to them. Instead, when they went to the people, Moshe said, "Listen, O ye rebels, we shall bring forth water from this rock." And he hit the rock. He didn't speak to the rock. And as we're told, the water came forth and the nation had water to drink. But God shows his displeasure right away by chastising Moshe and Aharon, saying that you're not going to go into the land because lo ha'amantem bi lahakdishin, you did not have faith in me to sanctify my name. Now this is a source of major discussion. What exactly was so severe about what they did that it caused this punishment, that they shouldn't enter the land? And I think it's very clear from God's words that it says, "Lo ha'amantem bi," you did not have faith in me. Now we know that Moshe and Aharon, the greatest leaders of all time that the Jewish nation had ever had, obviously had faith in God who spoke to them on a regular basis. It wasn't that they didn't have faith in God. It's that they, in this situation, they didn't tap into that direct faith in God to listen to exactly what he told them to do and how he told them to do at this critical juncture that they had, that they could have made this great sanctification of God's name. And this was an opportune moment that God wanted them to seize to do something that would have been impacting the nation in the beginning, in the set, in their ongoing existence when they're first entering the land. This was a moment that needed to be taken advantage of, and they did not utilize it the way that God had commanded them to do. Now, in order to really understand more about why, what, and how, we have to look at the situation, which we're given hints. So we know that this is connected to the death of Miriam. So if you think about it, okay, Moshe's whole existence and the fact that the nation was saved and taken out of Egypt was all due to the faith that Miriam had in God. As we know that she's the one who convinced her father not to continue being separated from the mother when Paro decreed the death of all the babies. They separated and the nation followed suit because they were leaders, because they didn't want their children to be killed. But Miriam protested, and she had faith in God, and she says, we have to do what we have to do, and this is being worse than Paro because you're causing the women not to be, the female children not to be born, and so that's double the destruction, and we have to have faith in God and do what we're supposed to do. So she spoke metaphorically to the rock, to her father who had made a decision as a leader. And who's this little girl to come to the father and to look into the eyes of him and to protest what he was doing? But she was speaking from that inside, that faith in God, that there's going to be something, that this is not going to last. If we believe in God and do what we're supposed to do, we will be saved. And she convinced her father because she was coming from that steadfast emunah, the steadfast faith that she had. And she had that with her at all times. Again, when finally because she got her parents to be back together, they conceived Moshe. And when the mother could not hide Moshe anymore and was forced to put him in the basket in the Nile, and she stood by the Nile with her faith, watching what would happen to him, because she knew she had faith, and she was gonna do her utmost with the God in her to help out the situation. And she convinced Paro, again, Paro's daughter, again, a princess of Egypt, major power in the world. Who is she to go and tell her what to do? But she came from that faith in God, and she spoke out to give her advice what to do with Moshe to save not only his body but his spirit, so that he can become the leader again and take the nation out. And the whole nation was saved. Moshe was conceived and born and became a leader and saved the nation to get out of Egypt, all due to that faith, her faith of speaking to the metaphorical rock and bringing forth water, bringing forth life through that. And now Miriam dies, and she's not there anymore. When somebody like that passes, a leader of the nation, it is incumbent upon the rest of the nation to learn a lesson. What can we learn from her? What do we need to do to continue her name, to continue her legacy? And that was her legacy. And God gave a specific command to Moshe and Aharon to continue the legacy of Miriam, to speak to the rock and bring forth water, to give that message to the nation. The message of Miriam is to have that internal faith, and that you, the Jewish people, you can speak to the metaphorical rock and make a change in the world. You can take an impossibility, and if you take your strong faith and emunah and do everything you can with the breath of God and speak it out, you can create the future that is intended for you. It takes a firm emunah of looking into the nation's eyes and speaking out to a rock, to an impossible situation, and instilling faith in others. And they were supposed to do that. And it was that they needed going into the land of Israel. We know going into the land of Israel that it's a hard life, and that you have to have that faith. You have to have that faith that you can do that too, that you can bring forth water from a rock, which is basically what Israelis have done in this country. If you look at what they've done since we've gotten this country and built it, because we had faith in God, and we worked, and we didn't take the impossible things that normal people say it's impossible to build this land, and they didn't listen. They did that, and that's what the people needed. That's what they needed. And if the leaders couldn't give that to them, that message to them, then they couldn't take them into the land. And I think that's why the punishment was such. And I think that we have to take that message now. Israelis got to keep that message going and understand that if we have faith in God, that we can fix the wrongs and we can draw forth life from an impossible situation. And that's why I love this country so much, and that's why I want you all to join. And everyone who thinks you can't come, you have that faith. Have that faith that you can change something. You can bring forth life from an impossible situation. That's what this land is all about. That's what it's famous for, and that's what it's successful in. So come and bring your faith, and let's build this beautiful country with the rest of our nation. Take care. Shabbat Shalom.